This morning. Now, we're very happy to have Mike Jankins from Jankins Law Firm again with us on the set this morning. Thank you for being here. Now, you specialize in bankruptcy, something that people are hearing a lot more about these days. You know, you hear bankruptcy thrown around more often than you did maybe in the past, but people don't always know a lot about it still, and that you're being your specialty. We want to learn more from you today about that. So we want to know, like, just filing for bankruptcy, how does that affect somebody?
Well, that's a question that people often ask me when they call up on the phone. They're not really sure. They've heard about this bankruptcy stuff, and they go, I kind of like to find out about bankruptcy. What is it? What will it do to me?
Right.
If I do it, will I have any problems because of it? And so there are problems that some people could have, and it affects people in different ways. But I mean, generally, the good thing is that it'll erase a great deal of a person's debt, and so it allows them to kind of get back up on their feet and start all over again, and hopefully not make the same mistakes over again that may have led them to bankruptcy. People often wonder, you know, am I going to lose my job if I file bankruptcy? And the answer is you're not supposed to. There's a law that says an employer is not supposed to fire somebody just because they filed bankruptcy. We have some very large employers in Des Moines, and some of them are credit card issuers and give lots of loans. And so the people that work there, because they're such big employers, are often scared because if they work at one of the really, really large banks that issues lots of credit cards, they're afraid that if they file bankruptcy on that credit card, am I going to get fired and lose my job?
I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm like, I've never heard of that, but that makes sense.
And without naming names, I mean, there's a really large bank in Des Moines that hires lots and lots of people here.
Right.
So,
makes sense.
But they won't get fired. I mean, not because of that anyway, and they're not supposed to. But other things that bankruptcy can affect somebody's on their credit. In the short term, it'll put a blow to the person's credit rating. But in many cases, that person's credit rating has already been essentially destroyed.
Right.
Some people haven't been paying on their bills for a really long time, or some of these creditors have already taken them to court and gotten judgments, or they've been going through foreclosure proceedings, or they owe taxes and there's tax liens and those are being reported on their credit. So all of those things have already ruined the person's credit. So in effect, the filing of the bankruptcy really helps their credit because it gives them a chance now to go back into the credit world. All of the bad things on their credit have been resolved, not necessarily in a good way, like if they paid them, but nonetheless they're resolved and gone, so future credit lenders don't have to worry about those people getting in trouble with their other debt.
What's the average amount of years before you start seeing that bounce back of having the credit restored?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, and that's often asked of me. I mean, I've got clients that when they come to me, they either are in a automobile loan that is way too expensive for them. They made some mistakes, they just can't afford the vehicle, or they've traded into so many vehicles that they're carrying negative equity on the vehicle. A loan got carried forward onto the new car.
Gotcha.
And so it's just best that they let it go. So in that situation, they need a car. Well, there's a number of different dealerships that I'm able to refer my clients to that as soon as their bankruptcy is done, 3 months after we file, they're working, gainfully employed, and they can go get a car loan the day their bankruptcy is over with. And I don't mean a brand new car, but something off the used car lot, and it'll be financed not by a buy here, pay here place, but some very conventional financing, and some of them will even be financed by credit unions with very good interest rates. So I mean, that's one kind of credit that'll help the person build their credit score back.
It seems like 20 years ago, if you declared bankruptcy, it was a long time.
I feel like I don't know why, but I feel like the number 7, you knew if you filed bankruptcy, you had to wait 7 years before you would start seeing, you know, those credit card applications come back in the mail and things like that.
Well, everybody has this notion that it's a 7-year thing, that the 7 number is really magical. They think that you can't file bankruptcy again for 7 years, and that's really never been the case. It used to be 6 years in between. When the laws changed in 2005, it expanded to 8 years, but people still have this number 7 in their mind. And in fact, they also think it stays on your credit report for 7 years when actually it's 10.
Oh, wow.
I see.
But it's just information. It's credit history. So credit reports aren't bad always. It's just a history, the good history and the bad history. And so it's just on there. It doesn't. It's considered, and it's just a matter of how long whoever is going to be lending the money is going to consider it. People that have been using credit cards that led them into bankruptcy, they are kind of on the marketing lists of the companies that market the credit cards. And when the bankruptcies are all over, those people, miraculously enough, are getting invitations for credit cards once again, and it doesn't take really long time. We've got people that have come to my office for a bankruptcy, and we would tell their creditors when they call that you're going to be representing them, and we go, yes. And then they would never go through with it, and so some of these people that were already told they were going to file kind of just write that down. A year and a half later, we're getting credit card invitations in our office addressed to those people.
Oh,
and they've never even filed a bankruptcy, and their
Seriously?
credit's still bad. And so it's really kind of crazy. People can get a mortgage to buy a house, usually approximately 3 years after they file a Chapter 7. If they've qualify in all other respects, working full-time, have kept their credit good since they filed the bankruptcy and not done anything else foolishly. So that's not really that long of a time. I mean, people should be saving up a down payment anyway when they buy a house. And for most people, it probably takes a few years to save up a decent down payment. And so really, it's not that bad.
Do you get busy? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you get busy after the holidays?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Is there a time of year where you're like slammed with phone calls?
Well, and I don't think it's so much that we're busier because of the fact all of a sudden more people need to file bankruptcy. People see us throughout the year, and a lot of people just can't get the money together to file. It's not really cheap to file.
Right.
And so tax refund season's coming along, so people that may have talked to an attorney 6-7 months before, now they're getting a tax refund, now they got some money, now they can at least go back. And so I don't think we're getting a lot of new calls necessarily at this time of the year, because all of a sudden people go, oh, I just got buried with Christmas shopping or something like that. I really don't think that matters too much, because on what most people are spending, they've already accumulated big balances on their credit cards either, so their Christmas spending is usually just a blip on their overall financial picture, and I don't think it necessarily would just be a trigger to drive somebody into bankruptcy.
Now, since you're kind of the expert on this, what should people be looking for if they're looking for a bankruptcy attorney?
Well, the first thing is make sure they know what they're doing. So experience helps. People should ask questions, how long you've been doing this? Is this all you do? Am I going to be meeting with you? There's some offices that you may be calling to go see the bankruptcy attorney, and then you meet with a staff person who's not a lawyer. They may be a secretary or a legal assistant. And the first meeting that you have with the person is probably the very most important meeting in the whole matter, because you have to communicate. You have to be able to explain to the person what they need to expect. And in conversing back and forth, you find out important things about what's going on with that person, important things about what that person might own that might need to be protected. There can be a lot of planning that goes into a bankruptcy if there's a lot of significant issues. A staff person, whether it be a paralegal or a secretary, isn't going to be able to recognize all of those things. Even the best one is not going to recognize the things that an attorney would. And so it should be, at least in my view, everybody has their own ways of doing things. But I feel if I'm paying somebody to be my lawyer, then I want that person to be with me most of the time, the lawyer.
Which makes sense. And we obviously have a lot more we can talk about with this topic, so we're glad you're going to be joining us once again, and maybe letting people know the signs they need if they possibly should be looking for you or another bankruptcy attorney. So if people have more questions or want to find you specifically, how can they do that?
Well, they can call me at 255-1855, or they can find me on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Merry Christmas. And
you too, and thanks for having me back.
There you go. Stay tuned, everybody. We're going to be talking holiday travel mishaps coming up next.